Victor,
Hi.
you can see my screen, right?
Yep.
This is interesting. So you're doing this on that grid tool?
Mm-hmm.
I've never done that before.
Yeah, I learned it back a few years ago, and I've usually did small icons. So it's the first time doing something like
So
that.
it gets this like super like what's that called?
Sprite
8-bit
based.
look. What's it called?
Sprite based look.
Is that what that's called?
I think so.
Like it's like Super Mario Brothers or something.
The 8-bit look.
Yeah. So how does this work? I don't know how this works.
I just use the rectangular grid tool. I basically just control how many boxes I wanted. Essentially, put it around the entire artboard, and essentially just copied it a bunch of times, and then just started filling in the pieces I wanted. And as soon as I get something like a building that I like, I ungroup it and then go to Object, Live Paint, expand it, and it will essentially be a cutout of the very thing I just filled out.
Wow, that's
So
interesting.
So if you click on something like the fence right here, it is just that fence in the grid.
This?
Oh yeah, right there. But I grouped everything together, so that's kind of my concept. Yeah, if you click on something called like the fence, for example. If you click on just the moon, it'll probably be an easier explanation. Yeah, for example, I just did that on one grid. I ungrouped everything and just expanded it. It just focused on that, and I could still light paint it. If I want to change the color.
That's interesting. That's cool.
Yeah.
So you never did one that's elaborate, huh?
No, I just did like small little icons or like little photos. I never did like a landscape.
That's a cool trick. Or technique. It's not a trick. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool, man. It's
It's
cool because I'm learning something I didn't know, which I love.
I need to change the palette though, because
next term, if I do this as an exercise, I'll say I invented it.
That's fine. I did not invent this, so that's fine.
I didn't invent anything either. Okay, yeah, cool. Keep going.
All right, thank you.
It's Josh.
I've not gotten very far on mine.
There's a certain look for this. It's hard to, I think, what I haven't figured out yet? There's something that you brought up that, let me put it in my notebook, that I haven't figured out yet, and this is reminding me of it. This here?
Yeah.
That's sort of a moiré pattern. Right?
What is it? A moiré pattern?
It's like a moiré pattern. If you look it up here. And if not, I'll have to look it up or find one. But, okay, there. Let's try. See how it's starting to get that effect a little bit?
Yeah, that's really cool.
So I just took it and twisted it.
Yeah. What tool was that you used?
You just go up here to these ones. Effect, distort and transform. Okay. And I use twist. Now another thing, I might be able to go, I'm going to group these. If I set these, yeah, see how it's really getting a moiré pattern now?
Yeah.
So what happens with those moiré patterns is they're like, I don't know exactly how they're defined, but So if you go like you have this, and it's already starting to get a little bit of that idea, right?
Mhm.
But then if I offset one, now I totally get a moiré pattern.
Yeah.
Does that answer it?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And then, you could also just do snaky lines. A lot of it has to do with them, sort of being this tight kind of that idea and then sort of offsetting it. And then all of a sudden it goes into the moiré idea.
Right.
You like that? I didn't even know how to do that.
It's very impressive that you just figured it out, right?
But you should be able to play with this. Hang on. Let's try this. Now I can go over here to smooth and it'll smooth it out. And again, we've got this line right here, which is telling, which is still hanging on the information. If we want to get rid of that, we got to go up here, expand appearance, and now it's a line again. Oops. Yeah, see how it's starting to get a moiré pattern?
Yeah.
You stare hard enough, it looks like it's moving.
Yeah. Dude, that's pretty cool though. Look.
Mhm.
So basically it's these tight lines and you're offsetting one and it gets a moiré pattern.
Okay.
It's
Makes
also, it comes out of, if I remember right, you had to be careful in the old days with printing or you'd end up with a moiré pattern unintentionally.
Mm,
If like things weren't registered right or whatever.
right.
I think that's how I learned about it is it something out of the printing process that I don't remember. I hadn't thought about this before. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's such a cool effect.
Yeah, it is. And you know what? I don't see that many people using it.
Yeah.
You look, I clipping masked it. And now
Nice.
it's super groovy. Actually, I have a video I'm doing that has some kind of groovy music in it. Maybe I'll use it as in a background somehow. I don't know.
Very cool.
I could get it. You know what you could do too is you could take it into Premiere and probably put it on one layer, put another on the other layer, and rotate them. You get that cool moiré pattern going on in the backyard or in the background. And then loop it.
Yeah. That'd be so trippy.
Yeah, because I've been trying to think of like something to do sort of in the background like that for this thing because there's sort of a little bit of a 60s vibe to it. So maybe that it might be fun to try and make it happen.
Yeah, I think that would fit pretty well.
That's weird. I hadn't thought about that people don't use that very much. So there's a lot of variety of how you could handle it. It doesn't have to just be a spiral. It could be a lot of different things, right?
Right. Cool.
I think the trick is that the line has to be and also I think it used to happen with halftone patterns.
Uh-huh.
Like you could do halftone patterns, you can offset them like that. And I think they'll do that also, I think. Right? Because I think most of the printing process was halftones.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, now it's like, yeah, I guess it's still considered halftones. It's so micro now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you wouldn't see it the same
Have
way.
you seen that? Have you guys seen that? Because usually
Like
we do this in class. I bring a loop in usually, and we look at some images so we can get a sense of this. Hang on. So speaking of that, I just pulled up halftone patterns under a loop and look at, we got moiré patterns. See that? There's a halftone moiré pattern.
Yeah.
Right there. That's badass right there. I love that kind of stuff, right? Look
Yeah,
at this.
that's really cool.
So there's all these different ways you can explore this idea of a moiré pattern. You don't just have to be lines. Look at this one here.
Yeah.
And that's actually like here. So these are halftones creating it, right? So that was an undesirable thing in the printing process if you weren't going for it. Which if I remember right, it was a registration thing. I think was the problem. There used to be a lot more stuff you had to think of when you were talking about the printing process, like trapping. Like I never even hear that term anymore. You know what I mean? Where, if you had something too close, it might not trap and there'd be a white line in between it. Like you never hear that anymore. Probably because the system got to, but let's see if this is good. When you look under a loop and you look at a photograph, like something that looks like a totally continuous tone photograph, it's going to look like this,
Mhm.
right? And it sprays a little pattern. Usually you can see the organization a little more in it. So you'll see this little pattern of CMYK, yellow, magenta, black and yellow, or yellow, magenta, black and cyan, right? And I don't, to me, it's fascinating because you look at this thing and it's totally clear, you know, like a magazine or whatever. Then you look under the loop and that's what you see. You see this little spatter pattern of those 4 colors, right? And they're so microscopic that when you pull out from it, it looks like a continuous tone image, but it's not, right?
Yeah.
And it's just the same pattern all over the place, but it's just like I was on press one time. I don't know if I ever said this. And the guy pulled a sheet and I go, it's too yellow. And he goes, there's no yellow in there. And I go, dude, it's yellow. I go, there's too much yellow in there. There's no yellow in there. He goes, it's a blue black mix or whatever build. And I go, and I kept seeing yellow in it. I go, dude, don't argue with me. He pulls a loop out and he goes, look. And he was totally right. There was no yellow in it whatsoever. I was seeing yellow in it somehow, but there wasn't.
Yeah.
Because you look through the loop and you go, shit. And you just look and you go, oh, there's only 3 dots in here or 2 or whatever. It's so weird how they make those 4 colors look like anything. Like,
What was making it yellow?
it was probably just an optical thing.
Huh.
Where it was sort of, yeah, I mean, you can do that. You know, I'd say it's on the same level as when somebody comes over, and they do this all the time. They come over when I'm sketching, or they look at a sketch or whatever, and they go, oh my God, that's so detailed. It's like, there's no detail in it.
Mm.
But I'm tricking your brain into thinking there is. And sometimes it could have been the lighting in that space. Because
Right.
a lot of times it's sodium vapor or it's something with a lot of yellow in it. It could have been that, and it was throwing a cast onto it, and I was seeing, that's why I was going, that's too yellow.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Which is why whenever I did a press check, I had basically 2, actually 3. I would go outside, find me a spot outside the building that was shaded, and I could go, to me, that's a 0 lighting reference point. Okay. Which means sunlight is basically the same, you know, it's a 0 reference point. It's daylight, right? I'm in the shadow, so it's diffused. Now, that can get a lot of blue and things in there, but I just kind of use that as like my starting point and go, okay, what does it look like in this? Then I look at it in the crappy lighting inside the print house, right? Because they're just big, huge spaces with not great lights, but, you know, industrial lights or whatever. And I look at it in there. And then they usually have a light booth that's quote unquote daylight balanced. And I go look at it in there. Okay. Because the reality is that thing is going to be, let's say it was for Costco. Okay. Costco has terrible lighting, right? It does. It has terrible lighting. So like, it's kind of like in the back of your brain, you go, I got to get this thing balanced out where it looks like what it should look like from sort of a 0 reference point. But once it goes, and then I've had this happen too. Like, okay, so is this going to be, how's it? Okay. I have to see it a little further along, but I mean, you're on the right path. You're just building your basic shapes, right?
Right.
Is it going to have those cool guy wires on it too?
Yeah, actually. I do want to add them.
It's also got bulbs on all over the, like the round part and all that, right?
Yeah, and the bottom parts.
Are they all still going?
Usually, yeah.
Okay, so you're going to get this kind of slatty thing in here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What if that was designed to emulate a fountain?
Huh.
I can see it.
Right?
Yeah. I hadn't thought about what
Not
it
neither. Just now. It was an epiphany, Josh.
I do want to add some of the palm trees in there.
Yeah. All right. So you know where you're going, right? You have any questions?
No, you answered the ones I had.
I like this too, this overlap here where you're getting different colors that way.
Yeah, I'm
Go
still
ahead.
just experimenting with everything.
Yeah.
See how it comes out.
That's the whole point of just doing an open thing. Just do whatever you know, try a bunch of stuff.
Mhm.
Right? Now this here, if you did the slat thing, I mean, you should be able to,
Oh, to like skew it, right?
yeah, there's different ways you could, you could use this one to go this way,
Right.
but you can also use this one to do the perspective thing,
Oh yeah.
right? And then there's distort, but the problem with distort, free distort, I guess that's not that bad. You can kind of play with it here.
Yeah.
The problem, what I don't like about that is it doesn't show me where it's sitting.
Right.
So that makes it tricky because you're like, what am I doing? I got to just guess this.
Yeah, I wonder why they did it like that. When it's like on
It's
Photoshop.
Adobe. Here's why, because Adobe goes, you go, well, that sucks. And you go, what are you gonna do about it? We're Adobe. What are you gonna do?
Mhm.
That's
True.
It's called being complacent. And by the way, you can see right here, it's still holding on to the old information.
Yeah.
And then I could go up to appearance, and here's free distort and go back to it. Okay.
Mhm.
Because if I go up here, I don't think it'll let me do it. See, now it goes, you want me to apply a new effect?
Yeah.
And, it looks like maybe it does let me do it. Maybe it
But it
does.
like overrides the last one.
I think so. I'm not sure. But anyway, anytime you want to go back and screw around with something that's not letting you screw around it, go through the appearance panel.
Okay.
Because they're all right here, what you've done to it. And you could also, and you could go here and just go throw it away. See, it applied the second one. So now I can't do it anymore. But if I would have gone there beginning, I'd just thrown that effect away. It would have just gone back to normal.
Hmm.
And then if you want, so I think right here now it's lost the information because you're not seeing anymore. So it looks like I expanded it somehow. Right?
Yeah.
What's going to be, so the over here would be for type or something, right?
Right.
Well, I like that drawing.
Thank you.
That's
I
cool.
decided to go ahead and do like a pattern like we were talking about last
Okay.
week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I did find a video that it kind of explains step by step how to make it in Illustrator, but I don't know if I quite understand the why of it.
It depends. If you're doing like this kind of thing, I probably just build it. I mean, I just build it. So here's what, this is the color comp here.
Yeah.
I like the colors too, by the way.
Thank you.
I mean, if you did this, you could take this whole thing and just drag it into the swatches and it's going to make a swatch pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because this doesn't have to have any overlapping, repeating elements. I just pulled this one in a little bit, maybe.
Mhm.
And then it's going to automatically do it for you in the swatch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
It showed how to do it. Is just trying to understand why I have to do it this way.
You don't. For this kind of thing, you just drag it into swatches.
Oh, okay.
Just drag, and once you get it all vectored,
Mhm.
just drop it in there, or drag it in there, and it'll do just like we did with the other when we did
Okay.
the skull pattern and all that stuff, right?
Okay.
And then you can go into your pattern palette and you can adjust it, however you want to adjust it. The one I was talking about is when you do a repeat pattern that's like has to line up.
Oh, okay.
There's a certain way of doing that. Actually, I'll put a video up. I found a really good video, a pretty good video of it.
Mhm.
And it's like anything else. It's just, you got to just obviously set. Because I mean, I've done them by hand. You just got to set it up. But it's better if you do it in the swatch palette. You just set up that initial swatch. And then once you put it in the swatch palette, it's just, now you don't have to think about it anymore.
Okay.
Once you do the upfront work, right?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll
try
find it.
both I'll try both ways to see what I can get because I just want
Sure.
to see
Yeah.
if there's a
And I'm
difference.
sure also if you go down that rabbit hole,
Mhm.
surface designers and things like that, textile design, they probably have a million cool techniques for that.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I mean, mine was, I had to do repeat patterns here and there, but not that much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
where I had to dig that down into it that much. But once you know the basic swatch thing, all you got to do is just then learn how to just go, how am I going to make this? And basically you got to line it up so it repeats, obviously, right?
Mhm.
So everything's lining up and down and side to side. Yeah, I like this.
Thank you. Cool.
And I like it. Where is it? Where'd it go?
It's in the
Oh,
same
here.
document if you need to turn on the layer.
Yeah, I like you turned her. I think I would turn her a little more right there.
Okay.
Right there, maybe. So you get that nice little, oops, that nice little overlap right there with the tail. And then that nice little overlap with the front part of the body. Does that make sense?
I think so.
So I just want to get this, I mean, in my opinion, to have the whole thing. Like when I'm drawing like sea creatures and things like that, I kind of think of it like this, where I can get this sort of ribbon idea going.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
Because then you're getting that eely water thing. Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. I can do that.
You know, because then if I put this and I start adding some weight to it, however that works. And then this, I can actually just do the overlap here. You see what I mean?
Mhm.
Don't be as sloppy as I'm being. I mean, I would just take this chunk right here and I would just adjust the back part because this all works. The foreground all works.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can do that.
Hey, Ray, what are you going to work on?
Yeah, the CAD layout for the Sangria camps.
So you can do like a package design
For the camp.
or like a packaging branding thing?
I guess it could be branding too. I'm not. I'll probably work on like the other
That's
flavors
fine.
as well.
It could be just packaging. It's fine.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions about it?
Is there anything you kind of like catches your eye for the layouts?
With this one, with the big eating up the space, I've always liked that.
Mm-hmm.
Real bold. Do you ever look at the die line?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah. Die line's a really good resource for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're doing, because I always get people and they go, well, I'm not doing package design. And I go, it doesn't matter. It's just great. Really, a lot of it's really bold design. And I also like, okay, get out of here. You can go, like these are fun, you know?
Hmm.
But what I liked about it is the way you can go to the category, which I think they've made harder to find, which I think is weird. Oh, look at that. Okay, I got to look at that. Huh. Where is it? Is it all the way down at the bottom now? Oh, here it is, categories. And then they have agriculture, beer, malt beverage. And then you can go to substrate, which is really cool. I'm going to go to aluminum, or let's go to glass bottle, you know, and color and blah, blah, blah. And then you can search it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like going to the, where is it? They usually have a toy area in here somewhere. I don't know where it is. Blah, blah, blah. Right? But you can see it's a lot of really good, bold, nice design. Look at that. Right?
Yeah.
And again, it's good design. Go look at, you know, whether you're a package designer or graphic, it doesn't matter. Just go look at good design, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'd argue that also like what Kayla's doing, that could be a cool package design. Like totally be a cool package design. Oh, by the way, I'm putting up I'm going to put it, I'm just putting in everything because I think it's kind of relevant to a lot of classes. I just did a quick graphite wash demo for another class. But then I'm taking that and then I'm going, because it's kind of coming some out of my 2 classes, but some out of my illustration class where I'm trying to get them out of sort of just constant entertainment design thinking, right? So I'm sort of taking this and going, let's take this and, you know, do a little more of an editorial thing. So anyway, I'm taking that as a starting point. Yesterday I took the charcoal wash drawing and then I did some mixed media paint stuff on it, right? And then today I'm pulling it into Photoshop and I'm going to finish it out in Photoshop, right? So it's kind of this 3-step process. And part of the reason I'm doing that is to start having them understand traditional textures and sort of starting points and everything, and then pulling it and finishing it digitally. Because there's some stuff we were talking about in my illustration class and they were like, why is he doing that? And I go, because he's painting some of it. He's creating his own textures. He's using some photography. He's using, you know, this, he's just completely mixing everything together. And I think it's a really smart way to work, obviously. And everybody always goes to like with this thing that I started, they go, well, I could just do that in Photoshop. And I go, if you think you can just do a charcoal or a graphite wash drawing in Photoshop, can you emulate it? Yeah, you could, but it's not the same. Does that make sense? Even the process being different to me makes it different. Yeah. Okay, I think this is for some kind of display. I'm going to get rid of these things. Hang on. I just don't want to look at these. Okay, number one, when you're doing, and I used to do this, and maybe you guys are not like this, but I used to do this just so I didn't make mistakes, because I always did. When I had a die line like this that was reasonably complicated, I would just take this, I'd print it, I'd just copy it, I'd copy the die line, because there wouldn't be, all I would have when I got the die line was that, right? So you got your score lines, so on and so forth. This is a tab cut, blah, 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 scored there. And your tabs, right? And here's your glue tab. I would take this, I just shrink it down to about that big. I just print it out on the crappy copier, you know? And then I just take a pair of scissors, I cut it out real quick and I'd fold it, take me 5 minutes. And then I'd unfold it, because if you look, you might not know. And I did this for years and I still would do this. I might not know how that's going to land, or certain things are going to land, because sometimes weird things are upside down and maybe I'm trying to line things up and all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense? Or sometimes you have something going around the box or over or something. And what you don't realize is that it looks really logical, but then when it's not, like something's going to be upside down and over here to line up with something after it folds together. Does that make sense? So what I would do is I would just print the empty die line, just cut it out all half-ass with scissors. I'd fold it all half-ass. And then I just put like an A on, you know, on the front facing things, and on the top, I'd make sure that the tab, because you usually want the tab, you know, where the box folds over, you usually want it in the back. So when I just put it like a letter, like an A or something. That way I know how it's oriented. Does that make sense? So I just do it on every panel, and then I just flatten it out, and then I'd look at my thing, I'd put another layer over it, and I just put the same thing. I just put a layer over this and lock it off with my same information. So I know, oh, I got to flip that there. This is oriented here. And it just immediately would just give me my orientation for the box. Does that make sense? Now, if you know, they're always going to ask you for a bleed. Okay. So let's fill this to a different color. Hang on. So there is my bleed. You can see it there. You see it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I put one over here. I don't know why I did it like that. Okay. So what I would do is let's lock this off. And let's go here. I'm just going to put on another layer. Turn all this stuff off. And by the way, I would always lay it out like this, where I had a back flat panel. Does that make sense? Because I'm layering everything, obviously, right? What I would do is I would take this whole die line, I come in here with my wide arrow tool. I clear out the interior. Oops. I haven't done this in a while, so hopefully I don't screw it up. Now, usually they're not all piecemeal like this. It's a CAD drawing. Sometimes CAD drawings, when you translate them, they get screwed up. Like here. And I think most of them wanted 1/8 of an inch. You know, sometimes they want more, and you can just figure out how that works out to okay, so now I'm going to go in here, and I used to go, I think it was 18 points. I think that worked out to 1/8 of an inch. Okay, now see how I have these like bad breaks right there? And by the way, I'd make it just like I did. I'd drag my layer with the die line down to the you know, the page icon and make a copy of it so it's lined up perfectly. And then I'd lock off my die line layer, because you never want to lose your die line layer, right? And I would go here. Okay, so you have this broken line here. You see that? Where it's meeting like that. Yeah, I don't want that, okay? Because that's not going to translate to what I'm trying to do here. So I grab all this, then I go up here to my stroke, and I'd round the corners. Now see how the corners are meeting in a more coherent way? Then I'd come up here and I'd go object, path, outline, stroke. Then with my wide arrow tool, oops, I screwed up, hang on. And then I go to my Pathfinder, unite. Oh, I know, it's still seeing it as a line for some reason, hang on. Path, outline, stroke. There it is. And now I've got a perfect 8-inch or 1/8 of an inch thing around my die line. Does that make sense? Saves you a lot of time.
Cool.
Okay. And if they come in and they go, hey, I want a 1/4 inch, just figure out what stroke weight will throw it out 1/4 of an inch, right? And then what I always did is I locked this layer off, and that would be my overall background color. I like to keep it separate. Then I would put my art, just, you know, just like they did here. I have to turn this off. So the art's on this layer, right? And then if I had a specialty layer, like let's say these 2s, I would go, these are on the art layer. So I would drag that. And the reason I'm dragging the layer is because it's going to line up perfectly. If I drag the layer and make a copy of it, does that make sense? I don't have to worry about that slightly being off or anything. And then I'm just going to come in here and go, I'm going to lock these 2 things. Because that's, let's say that's a foil hit. Let's say that's a varnish pass, right? And this layer now, and I usually make it red or something. You know, something alien in here so it sticks out a little bit. I would call this, let's say, foil, right? And then also, so now when I turn this on, here's my foil layer for the printer, or any kind of, or it could be a spot varnish. It could be a PMS color, spot color, could be any kind of specialty thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I'm going and breaking everything down. Okay. What was I going to say? Oh, I can also should be able to go here. And if I unclick print, you see this right here?
Mhm.
It's not going to print. Okay, that's sort of a safety thing, because now if you're doing it internally and you want to look at it, make sure you turn that on. But if I turn that off, it at least helps it not be a little more foolproof, where they don't just print this red. Does that make sense? Because it's not going to print. This information is just for the printer, right? And I'm going to also have I'm also going to have a call out on here to make sure. I'm probably going to put, you know, and every company will have different ways of doing this stuff. Or actually what I'd probably do is go, right?
Mhm.
And all this is, you know, in its own layer, so, you know, they can just turn it off. And I do the same thing over on this side, because what am I trying to do? I'm trying to make it idiot proof. Now, you're not usually going to send anything on a big commercial run that you're not going to have a conversation with a pre-press person or somebody, and they're going to usually give you a proof, you know what I mean? And you're going to look at it and go, yeah, that's it. Or, you know, whatever, or they're going to come back and go, wait a minute, can you set this layer up like this? They might do something like that. But it's basically sort of just layering out the different types of techniques you need. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
I will put this video up because I think that's actually a really good trick. But it's also not just that trick. It's just that idea of like utilizing this program to make your life a little easier. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And pick up package gigs, man. You know what I mean? Like once you know how to do it, I mean, if you're good at it, it's like anything else. You can go, you know, if it's something like this, and it's a freelance thing, it's like, you knock this out. It's no big deal. You know what I mean? But you know, it's money, right? Tower art. So that's the flat, right? I have a picture of this finished. I'll find it. That's the flat. And then this was a custom done thing. And I think this is the lid. And then they stacked on top of each other. Does that make sense? That was fun. Little peppermints.
How did you do the fish scale pattern? Or did
Just
you
repeated it. Actually, I think a guy at work for me did this one. I can't remember.
Mhm.
But you could just repeat that.
Okay.
I could just make that half. There's another way you could do it too, is what we just talked about. I could just do the half, repeat it, make a square, drop it into swatches, and I just fill that shape with that swatch, which is actually probably what he did, right?
Right.
Let me see if you can tell. Yeah, see, there's the shapes. You see it?
Yeah.
That's weird though. They're connected. That's kind of weird. He might have used a filter to do that too. He might have just taken the line work like we were just talking about with that moiré pattern and made that shape.
Mhm.
Or he just made one line and then just repeated it.
Yeah.
In other words, I don't know.
Thought you knew everything, Mike.
Yeah. No, he probably did it that way. I don't remember. I just don't remember how he did it. See, there's the that little shadow value. And, oh, here it is. He just repeated it. So that's the shape. Oops. And then this is over the top of that. Here it is. There it is.
Oh, okay.
And he repeated it. But you could make a swatch out of that. Probably be easier.
Mhm.
And then the nice thing too, by the way, let's say you're doing, because usually these things are part, obviously a holiday line, right? I might go, wow, I really like that. So now I can go, hey, make me a little quick style guide, which means you're going to pull these out, maybe one and one and one. Make a swatch pattern out of this. You know, take the little individual elements, just pop them in like a style guide, and then I can give that to the rest of the team and go, okay, let's create this, and let's create this, and let's create this, and it's all going to be a cohesive, coherent line because it's all being, we've created our own style guide out of an illustration, right? And then people add to it, subtract to it, you know, and whatever, but it gives us all a, you know, and then if this gingerbread pattern is a swatch, that's in the style guide. So, you know, if they're creating something else, it's like, bam, they just throw it on there and everybody on the team is creating in the same vein, kind of making things that all feel, you know, coherent, right? Or cohesive. Okay.
Cool.
And by the way, when you come into a situation, you'd be surprised how many people don't know this stuff. Okay. Who don't even understand the concept. Like they might work with style guides and stuff, but they never think of just making a quick one themselves because somebody just created something with really a whole bunch of assets that you can keep reusing, right? Which is what a style guide is, right? Like I got to find the Starbucks ones, you know, they're pretty simple, but it's like, okay, here's our 4 patterns for this season. Beginning of it's like, here's our thoughts to what this season is. Oh, it's Vermont winter, cozy by the fire, drinking hot chocolate with marshmallows in it. I mean, seriously, they write this little copy thing, which is actually helpful. And then they have the logos, they have this, they have that. Then they tell you everything about what not to use with what. Do not use this logo over this pattern. Do not use this pattern with this. Do not do this. Do not do this. If you put this on a mug, it goes vertical. It has to be 1/8 of an inch below or 1/4 of an inch below the lip. It has to be 1/8 of an inch below the bottom. Like there's all these parameters around it. And I've heard people go like, well, I don't want to be told. And it's like, dude, you want to get the job done. You know what I mean? I like that because then it's like, good, I can just set this stuff up and there's still room for creativity within that. Okay. But they're giving you a very strong structure to work within, which is actually kind of nice. Right?
Yeah.
If you're doing Starbucks or other licensed product, Godiva, all that kind of stuff. There's still a lot of creativity within that parameter, but it's actually nice to have a structure around it where you kind of go, okay, I know I can do all these things. Right? Okay.
Cool.
All right, you guys. I will let you get on with your lives. And I'll see you on Wednesday, our last day, yeah?
Yep.
Just the thing we're working on?
Huh?
Just the thing we're working on?
Yeah, that's all I want out of you guys. Okay.
Okay.
And one thing I do kind of at the end of the term, if you guys have, you know, and you guys have kind of hit everything I want to hit, I'm just looking for anything I might have missed, like this die line thing or whatever. But all right, you guys, I'll see you on Wednesday.
Good one.